News when you want it with Bloomberg News Now. I'm Monica Ricks. President Trump is reflecting on Senator Lindsey Graham, who died last night at 71 from what his office says was a brief and sudden illness. The president tells CNN Graham was one of his closest allies in Congress.
There was no better advocate. He was a fantastic advocate in the Senate, and he could do things that other people. He was able to. If I had a really big problem with a certain Democrat, he could work it out. That's something most Republicans can't do.
Bloomberg congressional reporter Eric Wasson also weighed in on the senior senator's legacy.
Very much an interventionist, very much a war hawk. He was very much in favor of the bombing of Iran, of trying to replace the regime there. Just a very assertive foreign policy voice that's going to leave that faction of the party without a very, very clear champion right now in the debates to come.
Graham had just been in Ukraine meeting with President Zelenskyy on Friday and said he'd look forward to advancing Russian sanctions legislation. Zelenskyy, by the way, removed the country's prime minister this morning as part of a broader cabinet shakeup. He said on social media that he's making these changes to update Ukraine's political strategy as the country continues its attacks on vessels and energy infrastructure this weekend in Russia. In the Middle East, the U.S. and Iran continued trading strikes, leaving potential peace talks in limbo. Bloomberg's Abir Abu Omar is covering the conflict from Dubai.
We're seeing this escalation in the rhetoric quite a bit this morning. It's still unclear if we're going to see a return to diplomacy, a return to those technical talks that were taking place up until a couple of weeks ago. But it seems that the situation is slightly a little bit more complicated, especially with pretexts saying that Iran will pay for the damage that it had ensued on the Strait of Hormuz.
Iran declared the waterway closed till further notice, but the U.S. says it's still open. The death toll from two powerful earthquakes in Venezuela has now surpassed 4,300 as recovery efforts continue for thousands more still missing in the disaster. President Delcy Rodriguez has renewed her call to the UN for financial help. And flooding in Missouri has turned deadly after the body of a woman was found when her home was swept off its foundation. So far, rescuers there have pulled hundreds of people from high waters, including more than 200 at a local summer camp. Fed Chair Kevin Warsh is set to testify on Capitol Hill over 2 days this week, beginning with an appearance before the House Financial Services Committee on Tuesday. Bloomberg's Charlie Pellet has details.
We know what Warsh will say in the central bank's semi-annual monetary policy report to Congress. It was released Friday in Washington. What we don't know is how he will respond to questions on a range of topics from lawmakers. The report is the first under the new Fed chair, and it sends an upbeat message about the economy. It describes growth as solid and productivity as strong while finding little sign of risk in the banking system. In New York, Charlie Pellet, Bloomberg Radio.
Earnings season also kicks off this week with reports expected from J.P. Morgan Chase, Bank of America, and Goldman Sachs on Tuesday. Morgan Stanley reports on Wednesday. And we should get some economic data, including the June Consumer Price Index, retail sales data, and production, inflation, and jobs numbers. Jobless claims are expected to remain pretty flat this month. A group led by tech billionaire Vinod has agreed to buy the Seattle Seahawks in a deal that's expected to set an NFL record. Terms haven't been disclosed, but Sportico values the deal at $9.6 billion. Owners are said to be meeting in late August to approve it. The hiring boom expected from the FIFA World Cup in the U.S. may not materialize after all, with payrolls and employment in the leisure and hospitality sector down by some 21,000 over the past 2 months. Expensive hotels and ticket prices have raised concerns about the eventual boost, with geopolitical tensions, higher airfares, and other barriers potentially limiting international travel. In World Cup action, England knocked out Norway yesterday, winning 2-1 in extra time, and Argentina beat Switzerland 3-1. They'll go head-to-head in a semifinals match on Wednesday. France takes on Spain Tuesday. The Wimbledon men's final starts at 11 a.m. Eastern today with Jannik Sinner going up against Alexander Zverev. And the final day of the Genesis Scottish Open kicks off this morning with 3 players atop the leaderboard. Robert McIntyre, Min Woo Lee, and Matt Fitzpatrick are all tied at 12 under par. And that's news when you want it with Bloomberg News Now. I'm Monica Ricks, and this is Bloomberg.